Okay. This is our third training session, and I hope some of you have watched the first two in the replay section, but this is our third one, and it's amazing to me that we really have drawn a great group of people. Uh, I noticed this morning we had 77 in the group after 2.5, 3 weeks, and I think it's because we're bringing value instead of selling product. It's I don't believe in if we're going to sell product, it's going to be to benefit someone who's trying to grow their business using the Chamber of Commerce. That's if we bring anybody in, which we will, by the way. If we bring anybody in that's going to sell anything, it will be for that purpose only. And so I guess it puts us in a very unique position. We don't have a product we're selling right now. We don't have an OTO to run to, and our trainings are totally free because we have such absolutely talented people in the group. There are some absolutely talented folks that go from coast to coast and around the world that can bring us knowledge and share their knowledge from experience, not from a product side, but from absolutely in the trenches. I've done this. This is how I got it done kind of approach. And that's what I respect about the folks that are in the group. And Peter and I started talking a couple of weeks ago. It was a casual conversation. It was one of my just casual calls, and he started telling me about how he had in the early stages of his career had come across a coach, and I'm going to let him tell you the story because he can tell it better than I can. So I'll just say that he came across somebody who actually taught him how to get clients just from the question of what do you do? Now, many people are stumped by that, or they're not stumped by it, but they get off talking about all kinds of nonsense. I build websites, or I'm in lead gen, or whatever else. And it's just the wrong way to do it. So hopefully today you will glean a lot from what Peter has to offer. And Peter, I really appreciate your being with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your information and your experiences. And as we get toward the end and so forth, when you get ready, Peter, I'd like to open up the group for questions. So uh, let me just turn this over to you, Peter, and let you rock and roll. Okay.
Uh, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for that introduction. So one of the things I want to mention to everyone is in the chat, there should be an attachment, a PDF there. If you all want to go ahead and download it, it's basically the worksheet part of what we're going to be discussing. It'll give you a chance to keep notes, write down your own thoughts and ideas, so then you can refer back to them later. As kind of an elaboration on what Chris mentioned regarding where this information is from, in 2009, I started an IT business. And I've been doing IT since the late 90s and was a certified Microsoft technician, etc. And eventually I started my own business because I got tired of working for other people. Unfortunately, even though I was spending about 20 to 30 hours a week at various networking and chamber events, etc., I was able to grow my business to an amazing $1,000 a month. Now, when you're charging $100 plus an hour, that's not very much business. So I knew I was doing something wrong. And in one of those groups, I encountered an individual that basically had a very interesting way of explaining everything that he did, enough so that I was curious to find out more. And it turns out he was a sales trainer. Thankfully, he didn't introduce himself as that, because if he had, I probably would have ran for the hills. But I took what amounted to a free seminar. It was live and in person. And during that initial 3 hours, he taught me a very interesting skill that ended up changing my life. And what I want to do over the next 30 to 45 minutes is actually introduce you to that skill without the benefit of live and in person and 3 hours of time. So basically what we're talking about is we're talking about a way to introduce yourself to someone without putting yourself in a box. Now, Chris, we talked a little bit about this and how I introduced you to this concept. But for those of you that have been to any sort of a group outing before, and whether it's your current business or a previous job, and someone asks you what you did, you generally had a one, kind of like a single response. And Chris, I think I told you the way I used to introduce myself was, well, I'm a computer IT guy. Now, invariably, I got the most frustrating response from 90% of the people, which would say, oh, you mean like Geek Squad? Now, I don't know if you guys understand the industry, but to an IT guy with 20 years of experience, to be compared to a 19-year-old with pimples that happens to work on your computer, that amounts to just making you want to throw things. So I started actually getting very frustrated. And just to kind of shortcut the result of this, after engaging within this individual on how to improve my language skills in terms of introducing myself, how to basically build a sales process, which is what he taught over 5 weeks, I actually changed my title to computer therapist. Now, that title doesn't mean a whole lot to anyone, and that's the point. No matter how effective you get at introducing yourself in the way that I'm about to teach you, it's still nice to have a title that you can put on your business card and such. And computer therapist came out of that. And it also opened up conversation. So if you're at the real beginning stages of the services you're offering, if you're still designing business cards, etc., take what you learned today and what I hopefully get a chance to teach you in the future to actually change even small things like the titles you use or the taglines you use to do nothing more than just create conversation. Because once you have the conversation created, that's when you have an opportunity to engage with people. If you can't create conversation, the conversation ends quickly. Just to kind of jump in, let me share my screen here. Can everyone see 2 pictures and the title, what was the last thing you bought?
Yeah, we see it, babe.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm going to kind of take you through some of the intro stuff. And what's really awesome is the sales person, or sales, we'll call him trainer, he's allowing me to actually use his slides. So the fact that we actually have the slides that I saw 10 years ago is pretty cool. So first of all, here you kind of, if you want to think about what does the person you're talking to think, that's what this is really about. So where we start is what do you think? And how do you use your own experiences to understand what other people are thinking? And if we talk about the last thing that someone bought, if anyone wants to volunteer, go ahead and unmute and jump in the conversation. Or you know what, Devin, you're very comfortable in front of the camera, as I've seen on the group. So Devin, if you don't mind participating with me here.
Yeah, the last thing I bought was actually food at a restaurant.
Food at a restaurant. Okay. Now, why did you go to that restaurant?
Because
Any particular reason?
Yeah, because I like the food.
You like the food. Okay. So the fact that you like the food doesn't necessarily mean you eat there every day, right?
No, I don't.
Okay. So why did you go there that evening?
Just because I felt like eating the food at that moment and that at that time.
Okay. That was convenience at all part of why you went there?
Yes, because it was pretty close and it was on the way as well.
Okay. Now, are you or your partner a good cook or a bad cook where the food at home is good or bad?
I'd say I'm an okay cook.
Okay. So basically, what you're kind of describing to me is the reason that you went to the restaurant is because you didn't want mediocre food and you wanted the convenience of someone else cooking.
Somewhat. I went to like a little party, so I had to get to go. Didn't have time, so it was more convenience.
So convenience, time saving, and bonus, good food.
Yes.
Okay, so the reason I kind of went through that description is the idea that the restaurant can market to you and just basically say good food, period, is not enough to get you there. That was actually the ancillary reason that you went there. So when it comes to marketing and the idea of what do people do for why do people buy things? It's if you can dig down a little deeper, you immediately begin to understand reasons that if that restaurant took advantage of those ideas and marketing to you, it becomes an easier decision for you to make. And we all kind of understand this on the screen. Solving a problem that your prospect has with your product or service is another way of saying, a fancy way of saying what's unique about the product or service that you have that the person wants to use, correct? More specifically, what's the underlying problem that gets them to actually spend their money? Does that make sense so far to everyone? Those of you on video, you can
I'm right on target. Absolutely.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
So the idea of this is really about, how do you take this idea and how do you use it to really work with potential buyers? And we've all heard the phrase features and benefits. And the problem with features and benefits is that it's really just way too much information. I love personal examples, so let me give you this example to what I was experiencing. So before I learned from the salesperson this particular technique, I thought I was extremely smart in introducing myself by telling people that I offered a very low-cost, inexpensive online backup solution. Matter of fact, it was only $5 a month. And now, I don't know how many of you can forget what you've learned in the last 10 years, but my guess is that 10 years ago, very few of you may have realized that there was an online backup solution, what that was, what it could be, etc. So after weeks of using this particular phrase, I realized I was getting a lot of glassy-eyed looks. People just kind of looking at me like, huh? Like my dog does. And I decided that I had to explain what online backup was, because certainly everyone knew what backup was. And that's when I discovered that no one understood what backup was. So basically, for about 6 weeks, I used a pitch and a concept that 0% of the people I engaged with actually understood what I was talking about. So wouldn't be very much different than trying to sell a car to someone that's lived underground for their entire life. It's just, they have no point of reference, so it doesn't mean anything. That was a bad analogy. But anyhow, the idea is that if you're going to use your expertise and your knowledge about your product or service, you are instantly providing too much information. For you as an expert to understand what the person across from you knows is very difficult, because they don't have the same concepts and experiences as you do. So really what you have to be concerned about is how people buy versus how to sell them. So, one of the things that this whole strategy that we covered today, and hopefully cover in more detail in the future, is the buyer psychology. And that is, why does someone make a decision? Now, if we kind of go back to the idea that I introduced myself as a computer guy or an IT guy, and that person instantly went to Geek Squad as their point of reference, why would they want to hire a 19-year-old with pimples who had a bad attitude and made them feel bad about themselves regarding their technology knowledge? So the moment I introduced myself that way, I actually pitching myself to a point where that person was unwilling to do business with someone like that. And that's the obstacle. There's some examples. Give me a second here. I want to find a couple examples here just to bring this out. So as an example, if someone asks, what do you do, and you are a financial planner, and you actually say, you respond that way, there's going to be some preconceived notions if that person has ever known a financial planner before. And there's a pretty good example here that, what if that person's only previous experience with financial planners was, I worked right next to one. He was always trying to get me to join his program, trying to get me to mortgage my house, sell me insurance, etc. Just basically a really pushy salesperson. The moment you introduce yourself as that, you become that person. Now, just to kind of, Devin, if you want to jump on real quick again with me. Devin, do you sell SEO at all?
I haven't sold any yet, but yeah, I have mentioned it and I got turned off like almost immediately.
Yeah, and it's because the people that have sold SEO in the last 10 or 15 years have really been some of the pushiest people, and it's been one of the most expensive services, and no one understands what it does. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And they don't understand that it does take some time in order to, it's not immediate results. And I guess that's kind of the notion that a lot of people have. They were pushing it, but it does take, a couple months to get it rolling.
Right. So if you encountered someone for the first time and you introduce yourself, hey, I do, a variety of things online, including websites, SEO, and blah, blah, blah. And that person hears the word SEO and they happen to talk to someone 2 weeks ago that fell into that category we were just talking about. That's probably not good for you. Would that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Now let me ask you, you earlier said that you don't sell it yet. Is the fear of people looking at you that way one of the reasons that you don't sell it yet?
I'm actually just starting. So
you're just starting. Okay. So let me ask, what areas are you currently talking to people about or actively trying to fulfill as a service?
So my biggest focus right now is, one is the contact reach. So given loyalty programs, those are my big focus right now.
Yeah, can you repeat that? I'm not sure if I got that exactly.
Okay, so just loyalty programs, bringing in customers in the door.
Oh, loyalty. Okay.
Their SMS, email.
Okay. So now, have you had an opportunity to communicate that to anyone and gotten any sort of feedback at all?
Not yet.
Okay. What do you think people will say when you try to explain it? I'm sure in your own brain, you've gone through an exercise of, if I say this, they'll say that, and then I'll respond this way. You've kind of had an internal dialogue to some degree, or maybe not very much, but at least have thought about it. Do you kind of have a feeling of how people might react or how people might understand what you're saying?
I don't think many people, because there's a lot of businesses that don't use it, so I don't think people will understand the benefit because they don't have the relation from somebody else that's actually done it.
Okay. Now, the way you described it to me, is that the way that you think you would describe it to someone if they came up to you right now and said, what do you do?
I just tell them I help, bring existing customers into your door, even on a more regular basis, and also get new customers.
Okay. So it sounds like you've done some USP kind of analysis. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Christopher
Okay.
kind of taught me that. So
Perfect. So you have a little bit of a head start versus anyone that hasn't done any of that yet, and so I'm kind of glad that I'm talking to you about this. So let me ask: is there? It sounds like the benefit to the person is that they'll get customers spending more money. Is that the primary standout that you think people will be excited to hear from you about?
I mean, they're getting more money in the door. The customer getting more returning customers. I think that would be important to the
Okay,
business.
and so getting customers to come in more often, or more customers, or both.
Both.
Okay, so basically, you're going to increase revenues. Is kind of a short and sweet way of saying it. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Okay. Now, let me ask: if a business owner doesn't increase revenues, is that bad for them? Is it good for them? Is it what's the impact if they don't increase revenues?
If they don't increase revenue, they can continue marketing to these people on a regular basis to bring them in the doors.
No. What I'm let me back up for a second,
Okay.
and I'm kind of jumping into this concept real quick. So I'm trying to dig deep into what your understanding is to understand the buyer's understanding.
Okay.
So if a person does not work with you, like they do not take advantage of increasing the number of people coming in the door, what is the effect or impact to that business owner if they don't increase the number of people coming in the door?
I mean, it's virtually where they were already at.
Okay, so business will not get better.
Yeah, business is not getting better.
Okay, is there a chance that their current business situation they're not happy with?
Yeah, they're probably still not happy because they're still getting the same amount.
Okay, so is it fair to say that most business owners want to increase the number of customers coming in the front door because they don't believe that they have enough business?
I would say that a lot of people, they probably think they already have enough business, but when it's, getting more would always be better.
Okay, but it would be better. Why? Because they would make more money.
Yes.
Okay, now, if you were talking to a mom and pop bakery, let's say, they're pretty satisfied with the amount of money they make. They work long hours, most likely. They pay for their kids' clothes, and they have food, they have a mortgage, etc. But when it comes to making more money, what do they get out of it other than increasing their business? So if they increase the number of people walking in the door and they end up making more money, what are some possible ways that improves their life?
On the business terms, like?
No, let's say as a business owner, personally.
Okay. They could probably, hire another employee so they can free up some of their own time.
Okay. Do you think having more money will help their family situation at all regarding maybe they like to go out to eat like you do? Maybe if they made more money, they could take their family out for dinner more often. Maybe they have a high school student who's thinking about college and they don't have quite enough money for college saved up yet. Right? So what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of diving into the business owner's mindset, since that's who you're selling to, and I'm trying to find an impact of what will happen if they don't increase the number of people coming in the front door. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So basically, now the exercise I just went through, one of the ways that I've gotten good at this is I've talked to people like you that I've met at a networking event. I've learned about your business, usually not this aggressively because this is a training situation. And then what I do is the next person that comes along, I introduce them to you by introducing them real quick. So Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Chris, good to see you again. Hey, have you met Devin?
I haven't, no.
What Devin does is he works with small business owners who want to get more people in the front door in order to increase the amount of money that he makes, in order to be able to hire much needed employees and to be able to make sure that he actually has enough money to send his kids to college. Isn't he a great guy?
Yeah, he's a great guy. Okay. And what do you do?
You know what? I'm not important. Let's go ahead and talk to Devin. So what I hope everyone is kind of got from what I just kind of described is that without telling anyone exactly what Devin does, technically speaking, whether it's online marketing, loyalty marketing, it's website design, advertising, etc. My expectation is Chris is so curious how the heck Devin does what he does.
Well, I have a question. The question you asked me, repeat that question for me.
The question that I asked you?
Yeah, have you met Devin, and what was the question after that? What he does?
Oh, so it wasn't a question, it was a statement. So okay. What I did was I described who Devin works with, why he works with them in terms of what they get out of it, and what will happen if they don't, and the outcome of actually working with him. I'm sorry, it's hard to put it all into one thought. So this is a good time to go to
the question I'm asking is that too much information, and does it leave room for that pregnant pause that says, okay, tell me more?
Absolutely. So regarding whether or not it's too much information, if said properly, and I'm certainly out of practice, so please don't hold that against me. If said properly, it's so conversational that it doesn't sound like a pitch. And it's one of the reasons why I took this example of being able to explain Devin's situation specifically. Now, one of the ways to actually work with this is if you make it specific to the person you're talking to. So if I was actually talking to a baker, I would have given an example of how they could sell more donuts or more cakes, etc., in order to achieve the goal. So it can be very customized. Now, if everyone's looking at the shared screen here, solve their problem with a solution statement. This is kind of the beginning of the concept, and that is, if you can state a problem, explain what will happen if that problem is not solved, and then describe a reason that they should work with you, and then what they will get out of it. So Devin, as your example is, the problem is that they don't get enough people or coming back through the door often enough. And if they don't, and if that problem wasn't solved, then they would not be able to grow their business and hire more employees and be able to afford to send their kids to college. Does that make sense, how it's a question of stating a problem and then something bad will happen as a result of not solving the problem?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now I want you to know that this particular chart here is you only have this information after you communicated with someone. So the example I tried to give with Chris was the assumption was I know Chris and I know a little bit about him, so I can give him specifics that relate to him when I'm introducing you as someone new to him. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to jump ahead a little bit here, and forgive me. This has honestly been about 6 years since I've taught anyone this. So let's jump into the actual part of what it is that you're here to learn, and that is, how do you answer the question, what do you do? And as I mentioned earlier, the response to this question is going to basically spark every past experience they've had with someone that falls into that category. And Devin, have you gone to a chamber event yet?
Yes, I've gone to about 4 different ones.
Okay. Now, when people have asked you what you do, can you remember any one or more than one example of how you responded to that?
Yeah. So I was at.
Did I lose you?
I guess so.
Hey, Chris, can you hear Devin?
No, I can't. We lost Devin.
Oh, is there anyone else that wants to jump in that has been to an event, a chamber event? Scott, Pat, Rick, Jeff, Bob.
Come on, guys.
I have.
Who's that?
Scott.
Hi, Scott. So when you went to an event, how did you introduce you, or how did you answer the question, what do you do?
Well, we go in with a very specific product, so that helps the local business owner gather more online reviews. So I tell people that we help businesses increase their online reviews.
Okay. So when you've gone to a chamber event recently, someone came up to you and they said, "Hi, I'm Bob. So what do you do?" And you answered, you increase reviews for businesses?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of reaction do you get in that moment? Do they ask a question? Do they, kind of nod? What kind of reaction have you got?
Well, most of the time, the reaction from most human beings is because they're obsessively thinking about themselves, is they think about themselves a little bit more, and maybe something that I said got through a little bit. But generally speaking, the online review idea is a positive one that comes, they're familiar with it, but they know they probably need to do something about it, but they're not doing anything about it yet. So the response is one of the reasons I chose to go into that business. It's one of the most positive responses I've gotten when I began to talk to people about it than anything I've ever offered people before.
Okay, so let me, if you can remember back to one of the actual interactions you had.
Yes.
And you had the dialogue going. The question was asked, "What do you do?" in your response. What was their immediate feedback? Whether it was their, the way they physically reacted, something they said, something they asked. What was an immediate reaction? Not your.
Oh.
Not your thoughts on their reaction, but what was their actual reaction?
Yeah, I understand. Oh, the word OH.
What was that?
OH, the word O.
Oh, okay. Now, did that pretty much end the conversation about what you did, or did they follow that up with probing questions or curiosity?
I followed that up with probing questions.
Okay, so the idea there is that when someone responds by O, and this is from personal experience, as I mentioned before about online backup, that could actually mean they have no idea what you said. Okay, it's also possible that they agree it's a great idea, but they have to understand exactly what it is that you do in order to agree.
Correct.
Okay.
I agree.
So basically, the question that arises is there a way for you to tell them what you do without actually ending the conversation regarding you mentioning what you do? So the fact that you continue to ask probing questions is really a chance for them to talk about themselves. And if you can use that information to later come back and reintroduce your service, then that's an excellent process. But if they don't even remember what you did or didn't understand it, then at this point, they're just interested in selling you their services, and you've kind of lost control of the conversation. Does that make sense?
It does. And, what I have found, and I'm relentless in my pursuit of asking them about them, if nothing else, the impression that I'd like to leave them with is that I was the most interested in them person that they've ever met.
That's fantastic. And for those of you that don't know this, by asking questions, open-ended questions and probing questions regarding someone's business, their family, and all those things are one of the keys to building relationships and rapport with people that you don't know. So that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. The question is, with all those people that you've met and now have a wonderful opinion of you, are any of them doing business with you yet?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so that should tell you something very important, and that is you're doing great. The question is, if you could do better, is that something that you would like to learn how to do?
Yes.
All right. So
I'll make that a double yes.
All right.
Yes.
So Scott, but when someone asks you, what do you do? The first thing you can do, of course, is basically thank them for asking you or something like that. And this has a double benefit. This has a benefit of giving you time or a second to think about how you're actually going to put the information together. Now,
right.
let me ask specifically, in most situations when you encounter someone for the first time at a chamber event, are you usually the first one to answer that question, or do they talk about themselves a little bit first?
I usually try to ask as much about them and what they do as humanly possible, and I will continue to do that until they say the magic words. And you've already said those plenty of times. Well, Scott, what do you do? But again, that usually comes after, I do everything that I can for them to tell me everything about them that they can.
Sure. So let me ask, is there anyone recently that you encountered, had this what you do conversation with, that you felt didn't go quite as well as you thought it could?
Yes.
And that you really want to convert to a client? Can you give me an actual example and tell me what they did?
Yes. I offered him what we have, and he said, I'll get back to you.
But, right, I understand that, but way before you offered him what you had, you had a probing kind of conversation with him, correct?
Right.
Okay, so tell me what was the person's first name and what did they do?
Dwight. And again, the conversation was pleasant, but I didn't really feel like I was doing a good enough job of him buying into what I was talking about.
I'm not asking about that. What I'm asking about is, what did he do?
Oh, body language. He just wouldn't. I didn't feel like he was buying into what I was saying.
So let me ask you, did you ask him what he did for a living?
Yes.
Okay. What was his answer?
He runs a auto body shop.
Okay. So when I ask, what did he do? Or what does he do for a living? The answer is he runs a body shop.
Correct.
All right. So now, did you have a chance to inquire about his about some aspect of reviews that would solve a problem that he has?
Yes, because I always.
Just tell me what it is. Don't explain why you found out. Tell me what you found out.
Yes, I looked his business up online to see what his reviews looked like.
Okay. Now, did he describe a problem that he had with those reviews?
No.
Did you inquire about a problem he had with lead generation, maybe, or getting leads online?
Yes.
Okay. What problem did he verbalize?
He did. That was kind of where I was
Okay.
kind of having a problem.
So Scott, I want you to think back, and if you want to change individuals that we're talking about, that's fine. But what I'm actually trying to discover is if you're having in-depth probing conversations with people, asking them a lot of questions, I'm expecting that you're receiving information from them that will help you sell your service to them. So I'm trying to get, if you had any information about Dwight that he wasn't happy about, so you can help him get rid of that issue.
And I think that may have been Peter. I may have jumped too quick.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah, into wanting to tell him what I was doing, because I already knew what the problem was, but I don't think he was. I don't think he was aware of it, and I think that's where I messed up.
Okay, and that's fine, and I'll show you how you can use that to your advantage, even when you make a mistake.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you, since the only thing you know about his problem at this point is that he has bad reviews, what will happen if you improve or solve that problem for him?
Well, he should get more organic calls, and over time, he should also get SEO juice for having more reviews than his competitors.
Okay, so let's throw out technical jargon for a second.
More customers.
More customers. Okay?
Yep.
And what does more customers mean?
More money.
More money. Okay. Now, is it fair to say that you solve the problem of bad reviews by increasing the number of good reviews?
Say that again.
Is it fair to say that you solve the problem of his bad reviews by helping him get a bunch of good reviews?
Well, I didn't really define for you what I meant when I said bad. He didn't have bad. He just had very few.
Okay.
It was just the number and the consistency of them coming in is what I could help him with. And,
okay, perfect. So are you looking at this form on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to start with, I'm glad you asked, or thank you for asking. And then I want you to say the words, have you ever noticed how? And then I want you to explain or use as an example people that have auto body shops. And then I want you to say often experience and describe having a low volume of reviews. Okay, and then I want you to stop there for a second, and then I'll explain the second half. So go ahead and use the phrases on this form, and then fill in the information specific to Dwight.
Okay. Dwight, have you ever noticed how
people that own body shops
people that own body shops often experience more business?
No, often experience low volumes of reviews.
Low volumes of reviews.
Hold on, right?
When I work with them, that improves.
Hold on. Yeah, you're jumping ahead.
Okay.
So they experience low volume of reviews. Okay. Now, at this point, if you're specifically talking about the guy's situation, what is the likelihood that he'll agree with your assertion?
A lot more, because I tied it into things that he's familiar with.
Right, and he himself experiences this problem.
Right.
Okay, so now if you think back to the idea of buyer psychology, his antennas have gone up oh my God, this guy can solve a problem I have.
Right.
Right. And it's
Yep.
not a problem that he necessarily understands by describing online reviews. It's a problem that he understands that people that own businesses like his don't have very many reviews. Right.
Right.
So now you can actually throw something in at the end of the sentence that don't have very many reviews that can affect their ability to get more leads online, as an example.
Right.
He's expressed this to you already, right? Otherwise, you can just wait until he nods or says, yeah, and then you go on to the next part. And what do you do?
Well, I provide an automated system to help businesses just like yours increase the consistency of their reviews online.
Hold on. You gave me too much information. So what I want to know is what you do, not the outcome of what you do yet. So will I increase or automate the process of reviews or
Yes.
something?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So that, and these should be everyone's two favorite words, so that
you get more clients
and make more money.
and make more money.
Right? So can you throw it all together for you, and in the middle you're going to let me respond?
Short-term memory.
It's perfectly fine. This is not to be memorized. This
I'm
is
57, not 27.
Yeah. So if you go back to the top, have you ever noticed how?
Have you ever noticed how auto body shops have few reviews? Well,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me respond.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Well, I provide a service that helps automate that.
Automate what?
Gathering more online reviews, and that makes you more money.
No, you must use the phrase "so that."
Oh yeah, so that you'll make more money.
Okay, so to borrow an example that I did earlier, Chris.
Yes.
And guys, I hate to go, but I've got to walk into my doctor's appointment. But Rick works with me real close, and he knows the people I've been talking to, so he can finish up and probably has a better memory than I do.
Sure. Hey, Rick, you want to jump on?
Here, yes.
All right, Chris. Chris, I'd like you to meet Rick.
Hello, Rick. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Chris?
I'm fine. I don't like New Yorkers, so, but you're pretty good.
Well, I appreciate that, but where are you from, Chris?
North Carolina.
You know what? I love North Carolinians.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah.
My daughter lives in North Carolina.
Oh, then we have something in common, then, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I hear that. All right, let's back up here. You're playing the role of the card.
Yeah. So basically,
I'm the client now, or whatever. I'm the.
You're the new person that Rick hasn't met yet. And
but
whether I just met Rick or not, and I'm assuming that this was the same conversation with Scott.
Sure, I can pick it up from there.
I now know this. I know this information about Rick, and I can actually introduce Rick to Chris using the same strategy. And it says, Chris, I want you to meet Rick. Now, what Rick does is, have you ever noticed how, people that attend chamber events don't, always seem to be lacking a lot of good reviews online that could really help their increase the number of referrals they get?
I've really never noticed that before. But I'm sure it's true.
Well, I'm making something now at this point.
I'll be quiet. Okay, go ahead.
Sometimes it's hard for me to think on my feet for sure. But the idea is that, let me start over. Have you ever noticed how small business owners sometimes have you noticed how small business owners often experience not having a lot of reviews online?
Chris, you got to say yes.
Oh, yes, yes. I have noticed that. In fact, I actually am kind of concerned about that with my own business.
Well, what Rick does is he automates the process of getting new reviews so that you can actually increase the number of referrals you get and your bottom line income.
Interesting.
Now, and it actually doesn't matter if I do this bad as a third-party person, but one of the reasons why I keep going back to this is how I mastered the technique for myself, was by doing it for other people. And if you're going to go to a chamber event, not only do you want to get this combo intro for yourself, but you want to get in the habit of helping to introduce people to other people. Because if you become the expert in actually introducing people to other people better than they introduce themselves, yes, you will quickly be the go-to person at every networking event you go to, because they don't know how to introduce themselves, but you do.
May I interject here, Peter?
Yeah.
What I learned very quickly, and you and I discussed this, was that I oftentimes would invite one of my clients to a networking or a chamber event. And the main purpose for that, whether or not they were a member of the chamber or not, was to then take them around, and I never left their side. Yeah, I didn't let them roam on their own. I never left their side, and I walked around and introduced them to every person in the room, because at that point in time, I pretty much knew everybody in the room. So, and when we got done, they were absolutely so grateful. I can't even express how grateful they were for that kind of exposure.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's how do I say this? One of the side effects of doing that for people is that they will never forget that you were helpful in helping grow their business. And if you introduce them to one new client, you've effectively have helped them grow their business. Even if they became clients of someone else at the chamber, you've still helped them grow in some way, because every business needs services as well as to increase revenue. So it's a very dynamic experience that if you can get comfortable with describing yourself and other people in very specific ways that relate to the people involved in the conversation, you will become very important to everyone that you can communicate that way with. It's a really hard way of saying, the better you get at explaining people's problems better than they can explain their own problems, the more effective you get in getting people together to do business with each other, including yourself with them. That was a mouthful that probably wasn't necessary, but that goes from not doing this very often. So, just for a minute here, does anyone else want to jump in and take a shot at this form to see how they may explain their own services under this format?
We have somebody from Mexico on the line that probably should jump in on this.
Okay.
Judith, are you open to mic? She might not have her mic up.
Is that Mrs. Black?
That is Mrs. Black, yes.
That would be me.
Hi, how are you?
All right, let's play games, Judith, okay?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'll give it my best shot. You're not going to see anybody who has a shorter memory than I do.
No problem at all. Do you by chance want to take notes while we're doing this?
You want me to multitask?
It's in case you come up with any great ones, but you can always refer to the recording. So
I think I'll go with the recording. Thank you, Peter.
I'm going to ask this question facetiously, but I want you to answer like you have in the past. Mrs. Black, what do you do?
It's actually Mrs. Awesome. Mrs. Black is my ESL training name.
All right, Mrs. Awesome.
That's
What
all
do you
right.
do?
I'm awesome some days. What do I do? I help restaurants fill their empty seats.
Okay. So,
Whoa.
let me think for a second.
Oh, good.
Okay. Actually, I think this might be a fun one. All right. So, is it fair to say that you work with restaurant owners?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what problem did you just describe that they experience?
Getting in
that very
customers.
short introduction.
Getting in customers.
No, you said filling seats.
Filling seats. Okay.
Okay, so what's the problem? They have a lot of empty seats.
They have a lot of empty seats. Okay.
Okay. So have you ever noticed how restaurant owners often experience having a lot of empty seats?
Okay.
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 Now, if you just think about that in comparison to what you said, it's almost an identical thing. It just, it paints a picture for the person.
Right. Involves them.
Right. And especially if you've already found out that they own a restaurant and you've already found out they have slow nights.
Okay.
Right. So have you ever noticed how restaurant owners sometimes or often experience lots of empty seats on slow nights? And the person has to acknowledge that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do
Okay.
you do? My apologies. The second part of this form, how do you solve the problem?
Well, I can help you with that.
No, you don't want to say you can help them.
That's selling, right?
Describe the problem you're solving. I get more people. Well,
I get more people. I get more bottoms in your seats
so that
so that you can hire more people and build your business.
okay, or you can have fewer slow nights, or you can keep
Increase your bottom line.
right. So what's important here is that if you're able to get any information out of someone before you use this introduction,
Mhm.
you can really customize it. Anyone on the channel by chance owns a restaurant or runs a restaurant or works in a restaurant? No? Ah, shucks. So,
Nobody want to play with me? Can you fake it?
well, if no one works in a restaurant, but it's if you have a chance to find out a little bit about them and they'd say something like, well, we have really good Fridays and Saturdays, but the rest of the week is really slow and things like that. You can use that to your advantage in your explanation. So when you say something like so that, instead of just saying you get more, you make more money or that you can hire more people, you can actually say so that your wait staff don't get frustrated on slow nights that they're not making enough money.
Mhm.
Right? So if you're able to dig deeper, then the introduction becomes more effective. And, but at the same time, it's just a different way of saying what you originally said. So
Peter.
tell me again what you originally said before we did the form.
Really?
Yeah.
What I originally said? Can I play back?
Well, just you said you help restaurant owners get more people in their seats.
Okay.
I was that accurate? Anyone remember
Yeah.
specifically?
Close enough.
Okay. Now say using this form, can you and I'm going to have you do this, even though you're a little uncomfortable with it. Do your best to phrase this as if you're talking to someone using this form.
Have you ever noticed how some restaurants don't have, some restaurants have kind of slow nights?
And
Is that
often
true?
Yeah.
And
use,
often
use the actual words in bold and see if you can squeeze it in with that
Have
information.
you ever noticed how some restaurants often experience a slow night?
Yeah,
They're not-
matter of fact, you know, at my restaurant, that happens at least 3-4 nights a week.
Do you happen to have
Hold
a
on.
special night? No, I have to use a form.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I can get more people. No, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to sell.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh,
Well,
well,
Go
I
ahead.
can help you solve that problem. See,
how do you solve the problem of slow nights? Get more people in the seats, right?
I can help you solve that problem by getting more people into your restaurant.
So the how you solve the problem is not part of what you say. Just say, well, and then
Well, I can help you get more people in your restaurant
so that
you
You
can
have-
improve your bottom line and you can fill up your restaurant.
how about, well, I help get more people into your restaurant so that you have fewer slow nights.
Okay, so I can help you get more people into your restaurant so that you have fewer slow nights.
Okay, so it's very similar to the other way, but this person not only agreed with you after the first half, but now you just said that you can solve a problem that they really didn't know was solvable, right?
And the next thing that I would normally say, I don't know if I
Yeah.
can say this to you. The next thing that I would normally do is ask them, do they have, let's say it's a Mexican restaurant. Do you have a margarita night? Do you have a special night? Do you have a taco night? That's what I would normally ask them next. They generally say yes. And then we go to event marketing with whatever event they've got.
Sure,
Yeah.
that
works?
makes total sense that you would go to that conversation.
It's probably wrong.
But let me ask you, when you tell people how to solve their problem by doing an event, do they need you to do that event? Or can they do it on your own?
I guess I should be saying, have you been doing any events with those nights?
So the reason I asked that question specifically is I'm curious if you've made that suggestion to people during that initial conversation, did you end up doing any business with them, or did they just take your advice and do it without you?
I haven't actually been to a chamber meeting, but
Okay.
I'm thinking in regards to restaurants that I've spoken with, and usually they say, have an event. What do you mean? And I say, well, how do you advertise that you have that night? That specialty. And do you get enough people? If I could bring more people into your restaurant on that evening, because then your staff is expecting that, they're ready for it. It's less problems in the kitchen.
But that was awesome, by the way. If everyone noticed, she asked a very important question, and that was, if she can solve the problem, will they want to work with her? I love that, by the way. So part of this goes that, you don't necessarily have to tell them you're going to do it using an event. What you can say is you can say, well, if I can reduce or eliminate the number of slow nights that you have, do you think you'd like to sit down and learn more?
Mm.
Right? So, create
Excellent,
the
yeah.
next meeting if you're just meeting them for a short minute or two. right? You don't have to actually give them all the answers while you're having this initial conversation.
Right.
Now, if they ask how you do it, so, you know, you can give specifics, but the one thing you want to be careful about when you're meeting people for the first time is that if you think of the proverbial lawyer or doctor at a wedding, that suddenly everyone is curious about the moles on their skin for the doctors, and everyone wants to know about their legal liability to the lawyer, right? Everyone has a question that they want answered for free so they don't have to pay for it later. You want to make sure that when you're meeting people that you're establishing yourself as an expert without giving them all the answers if they're not inclined to ever talk to you again. Does that make sense?
Right.
And keep in mind, earlier I was talking about a buyer psychology, and the part of the buyer psychology, and if you think of this yourself, for any of you that have ever been to a store or a car dealership or, you know, I'm thinking of a place like a department store, but especially a car dealership, where a salesperson has walked up to you and they've said the words, "Hi, can I help you with anything?" And your immediate reaction is, "No, I'm just browsing." And as soon as they turn around and walk away, you think to yourself, "Oh, shoot, I had a question." Has anyone here experienced that before?
Mm-hmm.
Many times.
And the reason is because your instinct is you don't want to be sold. So if you tell someone exactly how to solve their problem, where they can go out and potentially solve it on their own, you're effectively giving them an opportunity to take advantage of that instinct. So what you want to do, instead of telling them about the events necessarily, unless it comes up in natural conversation, you don't want to lead with, have you ever thought about doing events? You want to say, if there was a way that I can guarantee that your slowest night becomes one of your the busiest nights, is that something you'd like to learn more about? If they answer yes, you've got a bit of a commitment out of them to listen to you. And if they're listening to your advice at that point, you're now the expert. So you're no longer a salesperson. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the question is not, you know, there's a phrase out there that I love, and that is don't be salesy. And the reason I love it is that means something very different to different people. And to people that don't like salespeople, salesy means that kind of you know, kind of slimy kind of salesperson that you meet at a used car dealership. But I sell people every day of my life, and none of them look at me that way. And the only difference is the way you introduce ideas and let them react to those ideas. So rather than telling someone you should do events in order to increase your business, you can get their input by saying, if I could show you a way to increase your business, would you want me to tell you about it?
That's actually one of the sort of formats that I go to, in that I might ask, do you very often have larger groups of people in your restaurant rather than couples and that sort of thing? Do you have larger groups very often? Is that something that you would like to see in your restaurant? And they usually say yes, because groups generate more income. And then I would follow with, if I could show you how to get more groups in your restaurant, would you be interested in sitting down talking with me?
Yeah. So the concept of solving the deeper problem that we discussed earlier in the conversation, if you remember with my example with when I was having a conversation with Devin, was really kind of going down to trying to uncover the main problem, right? Or the underlying problems, let's call them. So the sales strategy of making a suggestion to an idea that they might be comfortable with having a bigger conversation with is an excellent strategy. The problem is that the information that you have to work with, people are trying to speculate without knowing anything about the people that you're having a conversation with. So the people that gave you this, we'll call it a script. The people that gave you this script don't know anything about the restaurant owner you're talking to, so they can't go much deeper than, well, every restaurant owner wants larger groups, right? That makes sense.
I'm going for yes answers.
Right. So if you can first uncover an actual problem that person is experiencing, and then use the same exact strategy, but replace the words large groups of people with the specific problem that you've got them to actually say to you, that changes the ball game. So the idea is, if you want to use that actual phrase, and tell me again what it was, if I could show you how to get larger groups into your restaurant, is that something that you would want to talk about? Is that close?
It's close. That's great.
Okay. So let's say you're trying to get to the fact that they want larger groups. If you can get them to admit they want larger groups before you mention larger groups, how much more powerful would that be?
Yeah, warm them up.
So what you do, and excuse me, just as kind of an aside to everyone, what I'm doing right now is actually one of the other things that I learned in one of the other weeks of this class, but I love it, and this is so important, so I'm covering it. So what if you can actually ask questions like, for most nights, when do people make reservations or don't they make reservations? And the person says, oh yeah, we accept reservations only. And then you say, what's the average size of your reservation? And they say, well, most reservations are 3 or 4 people. So you get a lot of families? Is that the case? Yes, we get a lot of family reservations. So the people book a lot of parties with you? No, I wish they booked a lot more parties. That would be cool. There's your opening.
Yep.
Well, if I could help you book more parties than you normally get on your slow nights, is that something you would like to sit down and talk about? Now, they just told you it's a problem. How can they possibly disagree, right? So that's the fundamental concept behind describing a problem versus just saying something that you do.
I think as a former corporate owner and being directing a lot of staff, I sort of leaned into the very direct approach. And I think what I have to learn is the round corners.
Yeah, and remember, there's nothing wrong with the direct approach unless they put their defenses up.
Yeah.
So
if it's too direct, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not their fault and it's not your fault. But if you're if you're the expert that they need in order to improve their life, it is, the way I view it, it is your duty to not screw this up.
Right.
Your job is not selling events to restaurants. Your job is to make sure that restaurants use events so that the restaurants don't go out of business. I mean, how many restaurants a year go out of business? It's one of the most competitive and highest turnover industries in the world, right?
That's excellent. Thank you, Peter.
I need to interject here.
Yeah.
We've got about 10 more minutes for this. That I would like to hear a role play for the agency that does full service. Now, we've talked about reviews. We've talked about restaurants. But if I'm a full service and I offer all kinds of things, websites to SEO to all the other good stuff, how am I going to approach the person as an agency, a full service agency, not as a specific type of person, and be effective in a group session? In the next 10 minutes, that's what I'd like to chat about.
Absolutely. Now, Chris, do you want to be my example, or does someone else want to also jump in? And maybe we'll do this a 2 or 3 way.
Let's see who else is.
Anyone else selling full service? Gavin, maybe that's what you do.
No, Gavin.
No. Okay.
Let's see here. Who we got here?
We got Bob, Jeff.
Look, actually, Bob, you can play full service.
All right, so Chris, I want you involved as well. So I'm instead of just one-on-one, I want to kind of to be one-on-two intentionally, because this is actually a problem that I'm currently trying to solve for myself, and how to really speak about the full service stuff. Because Chris, you might agree with this. Bob, if you agree with this, let me know as well. Is that you almost have that moment of freezing, of like, oh my God, which one do I mention? Is that true for either one of you? I know that's my problem.
Well, I've been in it long enough that I don't approach it that way, but I know in your early stages, you are confused because you have a multitude of things that you want to do for that company, but you're not sure exactly what you can do for that company. So approach-wise is more of a casual approach, and that is finding out what they need in that initial conversation.
Absolutely. So Bob, are you on? I see you're unmuted, but I haven't heard your voice yet.
Yeah, I'm on here. So I like the approach you've got outlined here. I haven't got the language down for myself, because I typically use just a broad basket term of digital marketing services. So that's pretty broad.
Sure, absolutely. So Bob and Chris, I'm going to ask a series of questions, and the purpose of these questions are almost brainstorming in terms of, just trying to find words that can be used. So as we're going through this process, try to keep in mind the words that you've used, and as we get further down, it might help actually build the sentences. First of all, Bob, you mentioned digital marketing, and digital marketing really kind of describes a variety of services that really kind of do less things than there are services. And what I mean by that is, if you take the idea of doing ads online and sending out emails, even though they're two completely different things, their purpose is to generate leads or to follow up with leads, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you could broad brush them with that, sure.
Yeah, right. So if you take the concept of digital marketing, what is it in a broader stroke, or let's say a more check that. Not a broader stroke, but a much more focused view. What is it that digital marketing solves for a business?
Well, I approach it from a different direction when I have been doing it, and that's usually when I walk up and introduce, they ask what I do, and I say something kind of off the wall and says, well, I help companies avoid doing random acts of marketing, and that causes them to ask a question. What does that mean? And
Sure.
what it means is they don't have a business plan. They don't have a marketing plan. And they come back and I say, well, I help companies develop a marketing plan because I'm basically a marketing consultant.
Okay. So the problem you're actually solving in that situation, Chris, it is you take a disparate marketing effort and you organize it and you execute a plan that actually creates better results.
It has a direction and a purpose, and that's the reason that I really catch their attention with the use of that term, random acts of marketing. They're going, what?
Sure, absolutely. But the key is that the problem that you're solving in that situation is the actual organization of their marketing effort.
And every business knows that they're really not sure if that newspaper ad or that radio ad or whatever else they're doing actually is working, because it's just they're shotgunning. They're not using, and I often use that shotgun to rifle approach. What I help you do is use a rifle approach through developing a marketing plan.
I love that. Bob, does any of that make sense to your situation as well?
Oh, I think Chris is reading my mind over here or something.
Okay.
First of all, I'm copying down his conversation starter line. I'm stealing that baby right now.
Then, absolutely. Now, Chris.
I'll have to send you my book. I actually wrote a book on that.
Oh my goodness.
So Chris, let's expound on this a little bit. So basically, what you're describing is businesses that have their marketing situation kind of they're half-assed, right?
They have no compass.
Yeah, they have no plan in place or strategy, or basically they're disorganized. However many different ways you can describe it.
They're victims of a salesman that walks in the door. And
okay.
when I take on a client, I say, do not buy from anybody unless you consult with me.
Okay. Now let me ask you, Chris, can you put that explanation of a business that is experiencing that situation into those first two sentences of this introduction?
Have you ever noticed how businesses really don't know if their advertising or their marketing is working?
So have you ever noticed how businesses are not able
to determine if their advertising is actually working, whether it be print or anything else?
Have you ever noticed how businesses often experiencing marketing that they're unable to track or figure out if it's working?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, most business owners in this situation will agree. Correct?
Yeah. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to track whether your print ads are paying you a return?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another way. Have you ever noticed how a business owner often experiences a lot of confusion in how their marketing dollars are being used, or keeping track of what is generating business? So what I'm trying to explain here is, Chris, your concept is so strong, and if we can get it in the structure, it will take it a couple steps up in power. So have you ever noticed how you want to put in a description of either the business owner, the marketing department, a small business? You want to explain or describe the person in front of you. Have you ever noticed how restaurant owners often experience, tons of money going out the door for marketing, but having no idea what actually get someone to walk into the door?
Exactly. You can customize it based on the person you're talking to in a group event, because
exactly. So
you
that
allow
being
yourself time to get to know them before you enter into your sphere of work.
Exactly. And Bob, I don't know if I think this is making sense to you big time as well, is the idea that now that you've captured that, part one is what we've done is we've gotten that person like on the edge of their chair going, well, yeah, that's me. What's he going to say next?
And
right?
What do they often experience? The next one is their problem.
No, we've already covered that. The often experience is they experience the problem of the money kind of not being tracked.
Well, how do I solve that problem then?
Well, that's step two. So the
are you
first
ready?
step is just getting them to recognize you are the expert of a problem that they didn't even could even put words to. So this is an important revelation for me. So before this conversation, this three-way conversation started, I was trying to think, and I think Bob was too, how do we describe the experience of digital marketing? And now we're like, oh, screw digital marketing. What this is about the fact that they're completely unstructured. That's the problem. They don't know what they're doing.
And we don't need to tell them how it works. We just need to show them it does work.
Exactly. So now that we have a completely new way of describing a problem that we had not previously thought of, we are now separated from every other digital marketer that goes to the same events as we do. Okay. Now, when we take the next step, when they agree and we describe how we solve the problem, Bob, what's your first instinct to follow the sentence, well, I?
Well, for me, and Chris and I had this conversation before. For me, I got to be a little careful. So we're using this example of print ads, for example. Any given, I'm thinking about 3 different chambers now nearby. Any given chamber mixer, if I go in there with that shooting down, print advertising with immeasurable ROI, I'm going to piss off 2 newspaper owners who are almost certainly going to be standing there.
Sure. I mean, you don't need to put anything down.
Yeah. So I gotta come at it from a different service. But I've used the shotgun versus, it's funny that Chris mentioned shotgun versus sniper, because I've used the exact language like that probably within the last week.
All right.
So I would come at it with, first I kind of have to, before I get into the script you've got here, which I think is brilliant, I kind of need to know what industry they're in, because my question coming out of the gate is going to be different for a restaurant owner, which I have clients in that niche, versus say a plumber.
So absolutely. We can do both of them, but which one do you want to do first?
Well, the restaurant owner, I've got it. That one kind of got down pat because I already approached it. But the plumber, how do I approach that plumber?
Peter, I hate to say this, but we're coming to the end of our timing here. So I know you can go on and on. In fact, I want to have you back on again, but right now we've hit the 1.5-hour mark, which is pretty much the max that we've got on the system. So I want to end it. I want you to end it with some statements, and the fact that I brought up the full service is because many of our people on our group are full service type, or want to be full service type people. They want to serve as many as possible and do all the things, as many things for as many companies as they can. But being able to just walk up and say the right thing at the right time is critical to their survival, especially in the chamber business. You have to know how to do that. And that's the reason I think at this point in time, I need to have you back on the week after next so we can carry on this conversation.
Absolutely. And Chris, let me ask, do you want to potentially continue this and record it separately for this part that we were just covering, and just offer it up to the group as an extra recording, or do you want to just wait till next Wednesday?
We'll actually go ahead and put this out to the group right away. And I'll tell the group right now, we're going to continue this conversation because this conversation is important to everybody in the group. This is something you have to think about every time you walk into a meeting, and you have to think about how you're going to say it. If you're full service, that's different from being isolated into just a restaurant or a plumber or something like that. And some people do specialize in verticals, and that's great because it's a really good way to operate sometimes. But probably 90% of the people in our group are looking to be able to serve everybody from restaurants to plumbers to not banks, but to everybody. But the chamber, of course, is our focus. And all this it focuses on what you say when you're in a chamber event. And, you know, you're not always going to run into a restaurant person at a chamber event. So
I agree.
the next time we come on, I think we need to focus on what you say if you're running into a total networking group.
Yeah.
But we've covered a lot of great points here. This has been fantastic, actually.
Absolutely. And one thing, if you can do, Chris, is actually the next, and this is for everyone. If you go to an event between now and next Wednesday, I want you to write down a list of all the trades or professions or things that you run into. So if you meet 6 people at your next chamber event, what did they do for a living? Is one a chiropractor? Is one a plumber? Is one a restaurant owner, etc.? So we can actually discuss these things in real life examples.
Great.
And there's nothing wrong with you know, deciding what you should have said. So next time you can say it when you run into a similar situation.
Fantastic, Peter. You've been fantastic. What a great round of information. My goodness gracious. Thank you so much. And Bob, you owe me for the random acts of marketing. That's copyrighted. So
checks in the mail, Chris.
Yeah, of course it is. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for everybody who participated today, from Switzerland to Mexico to every part of the U.S., you know, a lot of different parts of the U.S., in fact. And I appreciate everybody being online, and we will talk next time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter, again.
Thank you, Peter. Great
Thank
job.
you, Peter.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you very much.
you.
Thank you, everybody who showed up
Bye-bye.
next week. All right, bye.